Assalamu alaikum, Matiullah Jan, MJtv. Today we have on MJtv a very special guest from the United States. He is a professional lawyer, Clive Stafford Smith, and he is a special lawyer, special for Pakistanis because
I told him to say that. That's just him being
and
nice.
he is representing actually Dr Afia Siddiqui. She is the woman millions of Pakistanis and in fact Muslims across the world look up to because she had been in American jail for a long time now, and just after 9/11 she was allegedly abducted from Karachi, Pakistan, and handed over to the US authorities by the Pakistani intelligence agencies. And today she is facing a trial, and she has in fact already been convicted and sentenced to 86 years of prison. And currently Pakistani government and the United States government are in contact for her possible release as per the law of the two countries. And Clive Stafford Smith is here in Pakistan, in fact to Afghanistan, where he had come to do his work relating to Dr. Afia's case and as also the cases of many of the Gantanamo Bay prisoners that he had been representing in the past since 9/11. So we are going to talk to Stafford Clive Smith about Dr. Afia's case and his adventures in this region of the world. So Clive, welcome to Pakistan.
Thank you very much.
And
nice
first of all, we hear that there is some kind of progress made from the Pakistani government side, and it has been committed before the Pakistani courts by the government that they are going to write a letter seeking clemency for Dr. Afia Siddiqui from the outgoing government of Joe Biden. So what are the prospects, and how far is it possible that the American government is likely to pardon Dr. Afia Siddiqui and so that she can come back to Pakistan?
Well, let me say this. The Pakistan government needs to do much more than write a letter, obviously. And what we've been in negotiations with in court here in Islamabad is what they need to do. And if you look at your passport, and this is my passport, but your Pakistani passport says the same thing, and it talks about how the government needs to give all lawful aid and protection to a Pakistani citizen. And that's what we're asking the government here in Pakistan to do. And a letter's all very well, and we appreciate that, but what the Pakistan government needs to do is send a delegation to Washington to make it absolutely clear at the highest level that that Pakistan is backing us on the clemency petition. And if the Americans insist on some sort of quid pro quo, a swap of some sort, Pakistani government has to do that as well. And where we are on this is this. I've written the clemency petition. It is 56,600 words plus a supplement I just did this week, another 20,000 words. So that's a book, right? It's 80,000 words almost. It's got the whole story, and there's more coming out every day. But there are things in there that would be very, very embarrassing to both the Pakistan government and the American government. You talk about allegedly kidnapping her for a bounty out of Karachi with her children. There's no allegedly about it. I mean, it happened and we can prove it. But there's a lot more than that. And the deal I've struck, I hope, with the Pakistan authorities is this. I'm actually not interested in embarrassing anyone. I'm interested in one thing and one thing only, which is justice for Afia. And I have no problem if they give us the support we need, that we're not going to expose all the people that I know were deeply involved in this, because we just want justice. That's it.
So therefore, you are actually offering silence in return for her release.
Well, not total silence. I'm going to talk to you all the time and anyone else who wants to hear until this gets sorted, because it's really important.
Okay.
But what I'm not going to do for now is I'm not going to expose the evidence I have directly from ISI agents who have come forward to tell us the truth about what happened.
Officially, formally,
Well,
informally?
No, formally. And they would end up in court in New York if we have to do that.
Okay.
And I hope we don't have to do that, because much as it would be.
So
fun,
he's actually admitting having kidnapped Afia from Karachi and handed it over to American authorities.
Well, there's more than that, actually,
Okay.
and it's not just one person, and we have an American agent who's done the same thing, and we'll get more.
Okay.
And so that's my job, is to get the evidence. But of course, the reason to get this evidence is not just for the heck of it, it's because we want Afia out, and that's my only motive.
Clive, you have talked about quid pro quo. So what kind of quid pro quo you are expecting?
Well, you know, the next American president, I hate to tell you, is probably going to be Donald Trump. He's written a book called The Art of the Deal. And one thing, you know, if you're a business person, if you're a politician, what you know is there's always a deal, right? And while I'd love to think that people will do justice for Afia simply because it's the right thing to do, it is actually much more likely that they're going to want something in return. And I've been saying this for ages. The Americans want Dr. Shakil Afridi. I've just been in Afghanistan working out potential deals between the Americans and the Afghans to get the Guantanamo prisoners home. There's one last Afghan in Guantanamo. This is the way the world works. So the Pakistanis have got to get real on this. This is not what I can do, it's what the Pakistan government can do. And if they don't want to swap Shakil Afridi, which I think they should, frankly, it makes sense. We as Americans swap spies back and forth with Russia every other week. There's no harm done with that, particularly if you do something really great, like get Afia back. And we'll give credit to the Pakistan government if that happens. Nothing would give me more pleasure.
So but do you think that the Americans would ever hand over their national to any other country as part of some deal, even if that national has not been loyal to America?
We've done it lots of times. Yeah, of course. You know, when we deal with spies, sometimes they're Russian, sometimes they're not. So yes, it happens all the time. If the national wants it to happen. I mean, I don't think America would hand over an American to Russia if the American guy said, I really don't want to go there. But if Dr. Shakil Afridi says, I'd be happy going to America, I really don't like this awful prison you got me in, then I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do.
Have you been able to meet Shakil Afridi?
No. I've met his lawyers and some of his family.
So are they willing to go to America?
Of course, yeah, they'd be fine with it. I mean, not because I think Shakil Afridi differs with some of the allegations against him, but, you know, be that as it may, we just want to get a resolution.
Okay, as you said, you are here not just for Dr. Afia Siddiqui, but also for some Guantanamo Bay prisoners. And you have recently been a guest of honor, I should say, for the Taliban government. And they have received you very well because you have been representing many of the Taliban who were in Guantanamo Bay prisoners, and you ensured their release. So who are all those people who you got released from Guantanamo Bay? Are they holding some important positions in Afghanistan when you were there recently?
Let me say this. I say this in jest, of course, but I think it would be a great thing if we took the entire government of Pakistan, the entire government of Britain, the entire government of America, put them in Guantanamo for a month or two, so they could see how the other side lives. Because the Pakistan, the Afghan government, the Taliban, a large number of them were people I helped represent in Guantanamo Bay. And, you know, I'm sorry, I apologize on behalf of America for that. It was a dreadful thing to do. Guantanamo is anathema to our entire worldview. But those Taliban recognized that I was there on their side to try to get justice for them, and they are therefore incredibly good. Even the supreme leader has issued an edict that they should do everything possible to help me get justice for Afia. And, you know, that's fabulous, and I'm very grateful to them because, let's face it, I don't get that sort of cooperation from many governments.
But who are those Guantanamo Bay prisoners, and what positions they are holding today in Afghanistan?
Well, there's all sorts of them. I mean, the majority of the current government in Afghanistan was either in Bagram prison or Guantanamo, and they're holding every position from Prime Minister on down.
Okay.
Yeah,
The Prime Minister, so can you name a few?
Well, I mean, I don't want to really name them.
Just the officers, if you can mention
them. The whole intelligence service is run by some people I knew by the ISN number in Guantanamo Bay, and they're being incredibly helpful just about justice. What's particularly good about them is that they've had 45 years of war in Afghanistan, right? And for all that Pakistan thinks that it's on the receiving end of terrorism and so forth, look, Afghanistan is 1,000 times worse. And they have an absolute commitment, which I've witnessed and I'm very impressed with, not to go after the people who were basically traitors to their country. And, you know, some of them, for example, I don't think the current regime in Afghanistan are terribly keen on, you know, Hamid Karzai, the former president, but they're treating him perfectly well. And incidentally, Hamid Karzai is an important witness for Afia Siddiqui about what really happened to her daughter.
So what additional evidence have you been able to collect with regard to Dr. Afia Siddiqui's case from Afghanistan?
Well, I've been there 4 times on Afia's case now. I went before on behalf of the Guantanamo prisoners when the Americans were in charge, and I got to say, it's a much, much safer country for everybody now. And for all of what the West says about Afghanistan, an awful lot of that's just not true. But over the 4 visits, I got great evidence. I mean, first we went to Bagram, we identified the place she was originally held in, the isolation chambers there. I have some witnesses who saw her there and they came and described what they saw. Then I learned that there was a secret underground dark prison in Bagram, which I'd never heard of before. But I've now got this from several sources, and I've got them, they saw Afia there, they heard her screaming that she was being tortured.
So you visited that dark prison?
Yeah, that's in Bagram, underground. And then I know there's another prison she was held in, a women's prison where she was raped by the guards. And, you know, that one I'm pretty sure I know where it is, and I'm trying to get witnesses on that now. Then, of course, there's what happened to her children. I know, because I got it from official sources, where Ahmed, her son, was held, and they made him change his name to Ihsan Ali. And they told him if he ever said he was Afia's son, they'd kill him. And that was for 5 years, and I know where that is now, and I've got people helping me get a whole series of witnesses on that. Mariam, as you know, age 3, was taken by the CIA as an American citizen, just like Ahmed, and forcibly adopted into a white American Christian family. I know who the 2 people were who held her there. I know.
You met them?
No, I haven't met them yet. They're American. They're in the U.S.
Okay.
But
you haven't met them?
No, but I know their names.
Okay.
And so, you know, we're developing that. We know she was held from 2003 to 2010, so 7 years. And now we have evidence about exactly how she came to be released. We know I went to Ghazni 3 times where the whole incident happened. We now know what happened there. I've got evidence about the whole plot to kill her that I'm afraid there was some Pakistan authorities behind. A lot of that evidence I'm not going to go public with yet, because I hope we can reach an agreement on this. But all of this is coming along, and I'm going to just carry on going there. You know, I actually like going to Afghanistan. They're incredibly welcoming. And I like going there and developing more evidence, not just for her, but for other prisoners who have suffered similar fates.
So by collecting additional evidence from Afghanistan, are you actually building a case for clemency, or you're actually preparing for a legal battle, and is there further legal options available to Dr. Afia under the American judicial system?
Look, the idea of clemency is this, that on November the 5th there'll be an election. President Biden will still be president until January the 20th. So there are 10 weeks in there where Biden can do whatever he wants to do. And Joe Biden, poor fella, he's lost 2 children himself over his lifetime, and it has a big impact on him. He's a very sincere Catholic. He wants better relationships with the Muslim Islamic world. So this is an opportunity for him to do the right thing, and also I think he'll have empathy for the story. So the clemency petition is to try to get him first to do the right thing in those 10 weeks. Now, failing that, then come January, I'm going to file a proper petition in federal court in New York, which will be public to the whole world, and it'll lay out everything that we have so far. I will continue to get evidence. I'm hoping the judge will order a lot more secret evidence that the CIA has been lying about all this time. And, we'll use that method to get her out instead. And we're just going to carry on. I don't care how long it takes. I hope it happens quickly, but it doesn't matter how long it takes. I'm never, ever going to stop getting her out.
So, as a lawyer, you must have been meeting with Dr. Afia Siddiqui frequently. So, how do you find her morale, her physical state, and her mental state, and what exactly is she politically inclined to, or for that matter, is she a religious extremist? How do you find her?
No, she's not. Look, I've met with her 12 times in the last year and a bit, and I think that's an incredibly important part of the job, because for years she's had no one visiting her. I now go see her. I'm really glad that we got Dr. Fawzia in to see her twice, and I hope we'll do it again in the next month and a half. That's good for her. And I've also got some helpful 2 young women who are lawyers who are helping me, who are going to visit her every second week. I've got access to her on email every single day. I ask you, the people of Pakistan or anywhere else, to send me letters to her about how she inspires you, because that's really good for her to get. She thought she'd been forgotten. And the email, which perhaps you can share with everyone, is lettersforafia@gmail.com. That's letters and then the number 4 and then afia@gmail.com. And I send all of those letters in to her, which help her. How would you feel? What would it do to you psychologically in terms of trauma if I kidnapped all of your children, killed one of them, took the rest off to a foreign country?
Very harsh example to give, but obviously, as a father, it doesn't matter if you have 1 or 4 or 13 kids.
Yeah.
You're a father.
But if you lose them all, the way that Afia lost them, I think you'd be deranged if you thought that wouldn't have an immense psychological impact on any parent.
That's right.
And Afia, it's clear from her records over the last 16 years that when she was kidnapped and abused and all the terrible things that the CIA did to her, her number one concern was always her children. The Spanish Inquisition 500 years ago knew that if you want to really torture someone, what you do is you go after their loved ones. And I'm afraid that's an example that bad people have learned. And this has happened here. And so Afia is incredibly traumatized. She clearly suffers from profound post-traumatic stress disorder. She's not getting the treatment she needs. She gets no medical care that she needs. We've just sued them over that. They don't let her have an imam, for goodness sake. She's very religious. She's very observant. She's not an extremist in any manner of speaking, but she needs, religious solace more than she can get from me, let's face it. So, we sued them, and we're going to make conditions in that prison better for her and for everyone. But that's not our ultimate goal. Our goal is to get her out.
So how successful have you been in Pakistan? And have you been able to meet any Pakistani official? Have there been any discussions about what you just mentioned, a quid pro quo, a possible quid pro quo with the Pakistani officials?
Well, I'm a bit disappointed on this trip to Islamabad. I had hoped to meet with some senior officials. I'll say this in all candor. I think they're spending altogether too much time messing up your constitution at the moment and not enough time enforcing it. And you want my advice, which is unsolicited, I realize. We did that in Britain in 1650, that they tried to mess with the way judges have power, and it's not a good idea. It didn't end happily then, and it's not going to end happily now. So please don't do it.
Certainly.
But anyway, the bottom line is I haven't had any official meetings here, which is disappointing. But on the other hand, I have been able to meet with people who have just as much influence, and that's my friend in the media. But also with some lawyers who are working with me on the case and working with the government, to be honest. So I hope we're moving forward.
Did you try to meet the Attorney General for Pakistan or the Law Minister?
I'd rather hope to meet the Prime Minister and the Attorney General. That hasn't happened. I do understand there's chaos in this country, but I think there's a place you can lay the blame for that chaos, frankly, and it's probably not Imran Khan. So it's a shame. But let's focus on the positives. I'm going to go to Karachi and we'll do some more there, and then Dr. Fawzia and I are going to go and try and sort out what we want for Afia, which is for her to end up in a different country, not Pakistan, to get the care she needs, where she's not going to cause any trouble to anyone. The ISI doesn't have to worry about it. The military doesn't have to worry about it. No one has to worry about it. We just want to give her care and get her better. And that's going to take a while. So Fawzia and I are working on that, and I'm confident we'll work out a good location for her.
Okay, quickly, General Musharraf's government had been handing over many of the suspects to the U.S. authorities in return for millions of dollars, a fact that he had admitted.
He says in his book. But then he took it out of his book in the
Subsequently, he took it out because he had no explanation to give where has he spent that money. But
also, the Americans were very angry.
Okay.
They paid the bounties. It wasn't meant to go to corrupt officials. It was meant to go to the people.
So you think this process continues? Has it stopped? Because we still have people going missing and family members approaching courts in Pakistan, and they continue to be missing, particularly a husband of Amna Masood Janjua, for the last about 19 years now. He has been missing, and there is a whole movement for the missing persons, now we call as enforced disappearances, and we also have a judicial commission for that. So do you think that the government of Pakistan continues to be a complicit in such kind of illegal transnational activities?
Well, I'll tell you this. I think your problem, and I'm a great admirer of Pakistan. I like you people in Pakistan. I like your country. I think there are many good things about Pakistan, number one of which is your constitution that gives you power to do good. What I find terribly sad is that the military in this country doesn't seem to understand its role. America, we got a military. They know what their job is to protect America. Let's hope they don't invade too many countries that are unnecessary. But their job is military, is not to be involved in politics. And until the military understands that, your country isn't going to be in real trouble. And I'm afraid we're not seeing that going in the right direction. And you just step back for a second. Anyone in the military, whoever listens to this, I don't know if you do, think about what your life is really about. Your life is not about abducting people and putting them in secret places and making poor, Amina miss her husband. And then if you do kill him, which you shouldn't have done, not tell her. What's worse for a victim is not to know what happened. Tragedies do happen around the world. They happen too often in Pakistan. But to hide them just shows that it's wrong, so you shouldn't be doing it. And this is the real deal, right? You just got to stop that. And I know some of the people who are involved in that, in the military and the ISI here, and I've talked to them about the trauma that does to them. I've talked to people who have shot people in the head 50 times. Don't do it. I just cannot imagine being the person who does that, and I think it does immensely traumatic things to the people who were ordered by the higher-ups to do it. So let's just stop that nonsense. The real thing we want in Pakistan is to have a wonderful country with wonderful, hospitable people, where you're all working for the common good to make everyone happier and better off.
Did you tell all these things to the U.S. military personnel who abducted and who captured, who tortured Dr. Afia?
Yeah, I have. And look,
have you been able to talk to some of them?
I've been able to talk to, not enough, but I have. And look, in America, what we do is we don't put people in prison. I'm not really interested in punishing
But
them.
you have Gantanamo way outside America.
No, I know, but we've gone after those guys, right? And we've made it all very public. You know exactly what happened to those people. Right. And we've sued the people who did it. Mm-hmm. I'm not interested in putting them in prison. I want the truth to be known, only because if you don't know what history is, you're doomed to repeat the mistakes of history.
So what's the way out of all this? Because people here in Pakistan are now talking about resolving this enforced disappearances issues permanently. So how the state can protect its people and at the same time the rights of the common people?
Well, I think the real issue is this, that the people who are doing it tend to continue in this secrecy because they're afraid. You know, we've seen this 100 times, right? When you were in South Africa with apartheid, all the white people who were trampling on the black people were afraid of losing power because they thought, well, then they're going to do to us what we did to them. What the South Africans did was they created truth and reconciliation. That's what the Afghans have done. In Afghanistan, these are Pashtuns. You guys understand that the Pashtuns like their vengeance. But the supreme leader in Afghanistan has said, you're not having any of that vengeance stuff. So, and they're really respecting that in Afghanistan. I'm sure there are a very limited number of exceptions, but by and large, I've witnessed it. So you need the same thing here. You're never going to go anywhere if you want vengeance against the military and the ISI and so forth. But the military and the ISI need to recognize that in exchange for saying, let's let bygones be bygones, you got to stop doing that stuff. And this is going to take a shift in Pakistan to move the power back to where it needs to be, which is in the civilian sphere. And, you know, I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight, but that's what's got to happen in this country. It's just that obvious.
Have you been able to meet any Pakistani military official and talked about it?
I've met some, not the people high up. I'd love to, because honestly, I'm all about reconciliation, right? Much as sometimes you have to tell a bully to stop bullying. Nevertheless, what I'm really about is about justice and decency for people. My mum didn't tell me to go around chastising military officers. She told me to go around helping poor people who are being trampled on. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to meet more of the hierarchy. I've asked to. It doesn't happen. You know, I understand. You know, I'm not here to lecture like the British. I'm called Clive, right? And Clive of India was a terrible colonialist, and for that I have to apologise to the world. So I'm not here to really tell people what to do. I'm here to just give some advice.
But you have been received very well in Afghanistan by the Taliban regime. Mm-hmm. Did you tell them that while you are trying to do good for Dr. Afia, there are millions of Afias in Afghanistan who have been denied their fundamental rights? So did you advise Taliban government how to handle their own Afias?
I think that's a very, very good point. And look, there are a lot of countries I deem incredibly chauvinist, where they trample on women's rights.
And Taliban is one of them?
And Taliban is one of them. And I don't agree with that. But at the same time, neither do an amazing number of people in Afghanistan. The overwhelming majority of younger men who I talk to say, oh, you know, that we just don't agree with that. And what they're looking at is an evolution towards a more sensible system. And I think that in the West, we're taking totally the wrong approach. When I first encountered Guantanamo, I was told, don't get involved, it's horrendous, you shouldn't deal with these people, Guantanamo is awful. That's just wrong. If you don't engage, you can't change things. And by engaging in Guantanamo, we changed it. And we've eliminated the vast majority of it. In Afghanistan, we need to engage and we need to do positive things. And I've talked to the Afghans about this. I plan and I hope to set up a law office there to represent people for free, to try to help them when their rights are being abused.
Against the Taliban government?
No, I'm going to do it cooperatively. I think you get far more with honey than you do with vinegar. But at the same time, I think what we need to do with the Taliban, and I think they're open to this from talking to people there, is we need to see where we can agree. And we can agree on healthcare for everyone, for women and children just like men, obviously. We can agree on a lot of things about education, a surprising number. We can agree on all sorts of different things. And the more we press those, if we get scholarships for Afghan women to come to our universities in Britain and learn everything that they need, like medicine and so forth, that's going to move us in the direction that we want to go. And we need to do that. I'm absolutely committed to that. My wife would shoot me if I wasn't, frankly.
And doing that means or includes recognizing the Taliban government?
Well, of course you should. It's petty not to. And when you think about the governments around the world that we recognize some nasty, nasty governments that we need to change. And I'm not including, I think the Taliban is vastly better in most things than some of the governments we recognize. And so not to do it is a petty thing that the Americans insist on because we lost the war. And we're going to get over it like we did in Vietnam, but we'd do better to get over it more quickly.
Okay, quickly, just to conclude, is there a time frame for a possibility of Dr. Afia returning to Pakistan or getting released?
Getting released. I don't think returning to Pakistan. And my time frame is optimistic, and I can't pretend that I can promise it's going to happen. But I hope between November the 5th and January the 20th we'll sort it out. I think the odds are very much in the balance. It depends very much on how much help we get from the Pakistan government. Because I'm just one person, right? Whereas there are 230 million Pakistanis, you have a lot more power than you give yourself credit for.
Okay.
So I hope we can do it then. Keep your fingers crossed. Keep praying for it.
During the last hearing in Islamabad High Court, the Attorney General Office had committed that they would be writing a clemency letter to the American government. I don't know what's the update. Have they been able to do it?
I think that from what I understand, they've mostly done it. Whether it's finally approved or not, I don't know. That's a minor thing, frankly. A letter, I write letters to people every day and they ignore them. What we need most of all is for a group of senior people from this country to go as an embassy to the White House specifically on Afia's case. Now, lest you think that that's unreasonable, the Americans are doing that in Afghanistan. So, they told me, the Americans did, not the Afghans. So they're doing these negotiations for their citizens and so forth. There are 2 Americans right now in prison in Afghanistan. The Americans are sending an embassy there. So, and it's going to get received positively. So we got to have the same thing from the Pakistan government.
Okay, people in Pakistan and many Muslim countries, the educated people, they have all along been looking up to the United States justice system, and the courts here, the lawyers and judges here would often give examples of the American justice system and America's Supreme Court judgments. They would cite their case laws. But here in this case of Dr. Afia Siddiqui, people in Pakistan seem to be disillusioned by the fact that the American justice system and the American government has failed human beings like Dr. Afia Siddiqui. So are you also disappointed from the American justice system?
I blame the lawyers, actually. As an American lawyer, I have incredible power. It's really amazing. I mean, the American system is really good in that way. I have represented 400 people facing the death penalty, over 150 people facing this so-called war on terror. I sued the American government on February the 19th, 2002 over Guantanamo, where the most powerful person on earth, the president, wanted to keep all of your nationals and everyone else in secrecy in Guantanamo. We won, they lost. And indeed, I always like to say I've had 88 cases against the president in the US and I've won 87 of them, and I'm really pissed off about the one I lost. So we have great power, but you only have great power effectively if you use it, and frankly Afia has not had the sort of representation she needs up till now. And so we're going to get there. There are lots of avenues we can use, but the best way, whenever you're doing this, to get there is to get there consensually. It's much better than having a big arm wrestling argument. On the other hand, I really enjoy the arguments, so if that's the way they want to do it, that's fine. But I'd rather not. I think we can resolve this amicably, I hope.
But how did you come to know about this case? Why did you do it? And are you doing it gratis? So
yeah, everyone I've ever represented, I never charged anyone, because my mum told me that I'm what's called now an OPWM. Do you know what that stands for?
No, sorry.
That's because I made it up. It means I'm an old privileged white male, right? So
okay.
My mother told me that I was privileged, so it's my duty to help people who aren't. Now, which is great. I love to do that. And I got involved in this a year and a half ago because I just got 3 of the Pakistani prisoners out of Guantanamo, Saifullah Paracha and the Rabbani brothers. And I was really pleased. It was great to see them in Karachi and so forth. I'm going to go see them today. But I thought I had some extra time, which is always a mistake, right? And Fawzia I was going to America, I was going to Texas, and Fauzier asked me if I'd go see her sister. And I would have been churlish to say no. So I went to see Afia in January 2023. And you meet this poor woman, and you learn what really happened to her, and you just can't say no, right? So since then I said, yeah, I'll do it. And obviously, no one can pay for an American lawyer. If you paid me what American lawyers charge, it'd be millions and millions of dollars. So, we don't do it for money. So,
but you do it for?
I love to do it. And,
for what?
Well, I run a charity. I've always run charities. I've never asked anyone to pay because they're poor. They don't have the money. So Afia doesn't have any money, right? She's sitting in an awful prison in Texas. So I've always done that, and for me, that's what we should always do as lawyers. And I love to do it. So it's not I'm not saying it's a great sacrifice. It's not. It's fabulous. I get up every morning, and I get to do what I love, which is more than most people can say. So that's fine, and it's also fascinating because when you really get into a case like Afia's, and you learn what all these people did, and you discover all these nice people who are helpful and who are going to do the moral thing. You learn everything. I don't know why anyone writes fiction, right? Because all we have to do is, I write books, I just write what the American government did, and you just can't make that stuff up, can you?
When are you publishing this book?
Oh no, I've already written lots of books about other cases.
But Afia's?
Well, I'd love to write a book about Afia in due course. It depends whether everyone behaves themselves.
And some movie as well?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I love making movies. Yeah.
Okay.
They do a lot of good.
But
yeah, I admire you guys, journalists. I wanted to be a journalist when I was 19. And I said I was going to write the book that was going to convince the Americans of the error of their ways on the death penalty.
Okay.
I wrote that book when I was 20.
Oh my.
Fortunately, the publishers thought it wasn't something they wanted to publish. And I learned that what people in prison really need is they need a lawyer first. But then lawyers need to use publication in journalism because that's power. And we're all about bringing power to powerless people. So we're actually allies in all of this.
Clive, aren't you frustrated at times that you as a lawyer are defending people's rights free of charge? And your rivals are those government state officials who are being paid to do a good job, but they are actually violating the rights of the people. Are you frustrated from the work?
No, I think the world is mad.
Are you angry sometimes?
No, I don't see the point of it. Look, people do far worse things, right? I mean, right now in Pakistan, you've got people who are being paid lots of money to mess up your whole country. I believe it's called the military. And that's wrong, but there's no point being angry at them. We've just got to change it. And when you change it, you're much more likely to change things, not by standing on the bleachers and screaming at people, but by getting people, what would your mum say if all you were doing was trampling on people's rights? So, no, I don't get angry. I wish people wouldn't do it. I wish I was out of a job. But that's not going to be likely anytime soon. So, whatever, we just carry on. I think, what the bad guys hate is they hate when we laugh, They don't mind being told they're evil because that reinforces their sense of self. But if you laugh at them and say, what you're doing is just totally mad. Anyone in the CIA who thought it was a clever thing to abduct Afia's children and torture Afia is just deranged. And when the Americans came here and were killing people in Waziristan, I wanted to do a comedy about, who should we assassinate this week? Because you've got to laugh at these people. They're crazy that they think it's a good thing to fire a missile and kill 50 children. This is madness.
And in this way, you think Al-Qaeda or Taliban were a phenomenon, but also a reaction to the policies of imperialism in the United States.
Well, of course. Now, the key to that is this. When we Americans assassinated bin Laden here in Pakistan, we took his computer drives, right? And on those computer drives, we found a list of all the members of Al-Qaeda on, September the 10th, 2001. And there were 120 names. It was one sheet of paper. 5 of them were his brothers. 20 of them were dead already. It was a tiny organization that had very little influence. Now, at the time when 9/11 happened, 9/11 was a dreadful crime. It was an incredibly ugly thing to do. But America's response to that was phenomenally stupid. And at the time I said, what we should do is treat this as what it is. It's a criminal offense. And my bet is if I went to Afghanistan and talked to Osama bin Laden and told him you can have a Sharia court trial in The Hague, he'd probably have agreed because he would have got great publicity, and he couldn't imagine the Americans would be so stupid as to do what they did. But of course that didn't happen, and instead the Americans violated everyone's rights. They had Abu Ghraib, the US had Guantanamo, they invaded Afghanistan, and 20 years of chaos that achieved nothing. And they invaded Iraq, many more years of chaos. And we have created the much bigger extremist group today. Al-Qaeda and its affiliates are now massively bigger than they were in 2001. And I put that down largely to our very, very foolish reaction to it.
Okay, but still you're not angry about what Bush did in Iraq and Afghanistan. You're not angry, yeah?
Well, I don't see the point of anger. I don't do emotion, really.
But you justify the angry reaction from organizations like Taliban, Al-Qaeda.
No, I don't justify it. I think it's very unwise. I mean, Taliban, I understand them defending their country, right? I think that's understandable in our world. And if you see the 3 British Afghan wars, the Russian one and the Americans, it was going to happen. I understand that. I think the people in Al-Qaeda who go around killing innocent civilians are just deranged. That's not the solution to anything either. But there's sort of equality of madness on both sides. If you look at Gaza right now, I'm half Jewish, right? And, I deeply feel the Holocaust. But on the other hand, Netanyahu's a maniac. And what's going on between Hamas and Hezbollah and the Israelis and Iran is just insanity on all sides. And we should be talking about peace. We shouldn't be talking about killing lots of innocent people.
And quickly now, who do you think is going to be the next president of the United States? Kamala Harris or Donald Trump?
Well, I always like to bet against myself, right? Because then you always get a nice surprise. I think it'll be Trump.
Okay.
I think he's possibly by far the worst president America's ever had.
Worst?
Yeah.
Okay.
But at the same time, we're going to have to deal with what we have to deal with. I would love to see Kamala Harris, because to have a woman president and a black woman president would be a great step forward for America. And you like to think it's going to happen. I'll be quite surprised if it does. I'm going to vote, and I just share it's a private vote, but I'm going to tell you I'm not going to vote for Trump.
Okay. And quickly, recently President Trump is reported to have suggested death sentence for the migrants who would kill Americans.
That's just racism, pure and simple, isn't it? I was just giving a lecture the other day in London about populism and vilifying the weak minority, which is what we always do, right? We pick on a small minority of people and we vilify them so that people hate them. The Ku Klux Klan did that. And it's the same mentality as Trump has. The British are not immune. The British have the same stupid attitude towards asylum seekers, which is just about hate, and it's got nothing to do with solving our problems. The death penalty is just about hatred, and it solves none of our problems. So no, and look, Trump says all this stupid stuff, and we'll stop him from doing it. That's what we have the power of the Constitution to do.
Okay, Mr. Clive Stafford Smith, thank you so much
for
being our guest of Matiullah Jan MJtv, and we wish you good luck with your endeavor to bring justice to this region as well, and in the United States.
No, I'm not going to bring justice to Pakistan.
Yeah, obviously, you're trying your best, and we are all for it, and we look forward to release of Dr. Afia Siddiqui. We don't know, we don't suggest at what cost, but anyway, this is something you need to be appreciated by everyone here in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, or anywhere in the world. Thank you so much. And that's it from Matiullah Jan, MJtv.